world. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. The Kremlin says it will not accept any foreign troops in Ukraine after French President Emmanuel Macron announces 26 allies have pledged forces by land, sea or air once a ceasefire is reached. Macron says US support will be finalized soon, with President Trump signaling possible air cover as Zelensky presses for sky protection. The Israeli military says it now holds 40% of Gaza City and vows to intensify operations until Hamas is defeated, while slamming a EU commissioner for calling the war a genocide. At the same time, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio warns countries that recognizing a Palestinian state will only create more problems. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the United States will, quote, blow up foreign crime groups if necessary, as he announces Ecuador's Los Lobos and Los Choneros will be labeled terrorist organizations. His warning comes days after a US strike kills 11 people on a Venezuelan vessel in the Caribbean. Thailand's parliament meets to choose a new prime minister after days of political turmoil, even as former leader Thaksin Shinawatra departs abroad. The polarizing billionaire flies to Dubai, leaving his Pheu Thai party in disarray during the crucial vote. Australia and Japan agree to deepen security cooperation in the Indo-Pacific, including joint evacuation of citizens at risk overseas. Japan's Foreign Minister Takeshi Iwaya says both countries will strengthen deterrence and plan for regional contingencies. South Korea says it will join the United States and Japan in annual Freedom Edge defensive drills starting September the 15th to counter North Korea's missile and nuclear threats. The exercises will upgrade aerial, naval and cyber capabilities and are described as essential for regional stability. Portugal mourns after 16 people die in a Lisbon funicular crash, with victims from 6 countries and more than 20 others injured. Amid the wreckage, a 3-year-old German boy survives as authorities launch an independent investigation into the tragedy. A magnitude 6.2 earthquake strikes southeastern Afghanistan, the third since Sunday, when more than 2,200 people were killed in one of the country's deadliest quakes in years. Officials say the epicenter is in remote Nangarhar province near the Pakistan border, with reports of damage still coming in. We start this hour once again in Europe, where Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that Russia will follow any peace agreements about Ukraine. He added that if foreign troops are sent to Ukraine, they will be considered targets. Putin also said he has an open dialogue with US President Donald Trump, but they haven't spoken directly. Meanwhile, the Kremlin stated that a huge amount of work remains before any potential high-level or top-level meeting between Russia and Ukraine can take place. This comes amid renewed diplomatic attention, with US President Donald Trump reportedly pushing for direct talks between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin. On the ground, Ukraine has targeted Russia's Razayan oil refinery in a fresh drone strike, according to the commander of Ukraine's drone forces. The extent of the damage or casualties remains unclear at this moment. We are now joined by Glenn Grant, who is an ex-advisor to the Defence Minister of Ukraine, and he joins us live from Riga in Latvia. Thank you very much, Glenn, for speaking to us. Pleasure to talk to you, as always. This message from the Kremlin, both rejecting the foreign troops on the ground on Ukrainian soil, Glenn, and also saying that there is huge work when it comes to high-level direct talks between Moscow and Kiev. What is the Kremlin really signaling here?
I think it's pretty clear that they're saying we're going to keep going,
Mm.
and that everything that you're doing, everything that you're doing in Europe, and it's just wasted energy because there is no intention of going for peace. This is a dangerous time at the moment because we're just coming up to the Russian Zapad exercise, which is supposed to be in Belarus, and of course that also means that that the northern border of Ukraine will also be severely at risk during this time. And I would not say that it's the strongest armed border in the country. So the Ukrainians must be worried about what's going to come out of this Zapad exercise, whether it's a rehearsal or whether it's the start for something else.
Glenn, we got that statement from French President Macron yesterday saying that 26 Western allies would commit troops after a ceasefire. How realistic is this from the coalition of the willing?
Well, I mean, well, if he says that they're all willing to commit something, then fine, they're willing to commit, but
Mm.
commit to what? There's not peace on the way. So that, in my mind, that they're all just posturing in one way, gaining political benefit with each other by saying, yes, we'll join you. But they all know that there's nothing on the horizon. The British Defence Minister has apparently said, and I haven't read it yet myself, but has apparently said that Russia is weak. Yes, it is, but the idea that because they've lost 1 million people means weakness. Now, Putin will have calculated that 3 million is easily he can easily afford to lose 3 million people because it's just ammunition for him. So I think that we're still in dangerous waters, and I still think that the Europeans have not grasped the essence of what this is all about yet.
Glenn, just finally, very quickly, obviously the European support has been very strong for Ukraine and Western support in general. Of course, we've seen fluctuation with the US president. However, what do you think the Kremlin thinks when they see this posturing, as you call it, from the European nations and other Western allies? And do you think they feel threatened at all by the European powers, or is it just the United States that they think has any real substantive power in these negotiations?
Oh, I think I think I'm going to say you could be wrong on both counts. I think in the first thing they laugh at the Europeans
Mm.
who are showing that they haven't got the balls to actually enter the fight. So it's not going to bother them at all. As for America, I mean, America is bought. There's no question about it. Putin has bought Trump in some way or another. So I see nothing coming out of Trump at all. I mean, it's just 2 weeks delay, 2 weeks delay, 2 weeks delay. Well, how many times do you have to do that? And that's what you do with a friend. That's not what you do with an enemy. So I think that Putin is quite clear now after his successful trip to China and with the ways that the Western opposition is working, he's quite clear he can keep going.
Glenn, do stay with us as we have some further updates from the conflict in Ukraine. The Kremlin has confirmed that North Korean troops are not deployed on Ukrainian soil, but are stationed solely within Russian territory. This is according to reports. This comes as President Vladimir Putin expressed gratitude to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un during their meeting in Beijing, commending the courage of Kim's troops who have fought alongside Russian forces. This followed North Korea's official confirmation on April the 28th of 2025 that it sends thousands of soldiers to aid Russia in reclaiming the Kursk region under a mutual defense agreement. Glenn, could you analyze briefly for us the kind of role that North Korea has played in this conflict and the alliance that Pyongyang has with Russia, and where is the mutual benefit there?
Well, I mean, I think you're on the money on the point of saying that basically the North Korean troops went to help Russia remove Ukrainians from their soil, which they have done. And so right at this moment, there is no there is no further part of that agreement that can happen because there's very small amounts of Ukrainians on Russian soil. So there would need another agreement. They would need something more substantial, which would be a fundamental change for North Korea in actually attacking a Western country and crossing the border. So I'm not sure that that is going to happen, but you never say never in these things. But North Korea has also supplied huge amounts of ammunition and huge amounts of missiles. And it's not clear because there's been very little information recently about whether this is continuing at the same rate, whether it's slowed or whatever. The intelligence has been coming out has been quite weak in this regard. Maybe because it's just become day-to-day stuff and people don't recognize it as important. But I think that Putin believes that he can count on North Korea, and he probably can. The question is how much going forward can he count on them beyond missiles and ammunition?
Glenn Grant, always a pleasure to talk to you here on NewsX World. Thank you very much for your insight. We now move over to North America next, where US President Donald Trump has signed an order to implement lower tariffs on Japanese automobile imports. Tariffs on Japanese autos have been lowered from the 27.5% to 15%. The executive order ensures the 15% levy on Japanese imports will not be added on subject to higher tariffs such as beef. The order says that items with tariffs below 15% will be adjusted to match that of 15%. Additionally, there will be no tariffs on commercial airplanes and parts. Let's listen in to Japan's trade negotiator.
本日ですね、トランプ大統領により、我が国に対する関税の引き下げ措置に関する大統領令が署名をされました。トランプ大統領にはラトニック商務長官を通じて、石破総理からの親書をお渡しをし、トランプ大統領とともに日米関係の黄金時代を共に築いていきたい、そしてぜひ日本にご招待したいという石破総理のメッセージをお伝えしました。
We are now joined by Dr. Tomohiko Taniguchi, who is a former advisor to Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, and he joins us live from the Japanese capital of Tokyo. Thank you very much, Dr. Taniguchi, for joining us here on the program. Cutting auto tariffs from 27.5% down to 15%. How much of a relief is this for Japanese car makers like Toyota, like Honda, and like Nissan, Dr. Taniguchi?
Well, I can almost hear the huge sigh of relief from those automotive producers. You mentioned three, Toyota, Honda, Nissan, but there are others like Subaru and Mazda, two of the companies that have been reliant more on the United States market than other Japanese car makers. And now the Japanese are on a par with the Europeans. So in that sense, it's been better than the worst. Of course, the tariff rates much higher than they used to be is not good news, it's bad news, but the fact that they've been lowered to 15 have come as good news to many industrialists in Japan.
Indeed, and why has Donald Trump done this? Obviously, he's very transactional. What does he stand to benefit?
One can only guess what's been going on in the minds of the US president. What's significant about the Japanese-US deals is the commitment from the Japanese side in making a huge amount of investment into the United States, something like $550 billion worth of investment into the United States. And I think President Trump has been largely satisfied with the results.
How do you analyze Donald Trump's relationship with Japan? Do you think he looks at it fondly with respect? And also, of course, the relationship between the US president and Shigeru Ishiba. What are your thoughts?
My informed guess is Donald Trump, President Trump, is yet to remember the name of the Japanese Prime Minister. So these two nations, the United States and Japan, are still living on the legacy of the late Prime Minister Abe, whose relationship with the US President Donald Trump was exceptionally in good terms. And whenever Donald Trump meets Japanese delegates, including Japanese Prime Minister, he cites the name of the Prime Minister Abe, of the late Prime Minister, and fondly he recalls how good a chap Mr. Abe was.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Tomohiko Taniguchi, for joining us here on NewsX World. Always a pleasure to speak to you and get your insight. We now move on once again. We stay in the Indo-Pacific, where Thai Parliament is set to vote in a new Prime Minister, and all eyes are on Unutin Charnvirakul. He is the leader of the Bum Jatai party and a construction tycoon, and he's now poised to take the top job after former Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra was dismissed by the courts after a leaked phone call with Cambodia's former leader Hun Sen. Unutin showed up at Parliament earlier, shaking hands, smiling and chatting with members of Parliament and journalists. With strong backing from opposition blocs, he's expected to win a comfortable majority. If elected, he'll become Thailand's third Prime Minister in just 2 years, marking a big shift away from the Shinawatra dynasty. We are now joined by Dr. Sanjay Kumar. He's a journalist at the Korea Herald, and he joins us live from Seoul in South Korea. Thank you very much, Dr. Kumar, as always, for joining us here on the programme. I want to get your thoughts. How much of an important day is this for the Thai political world? And can you tell us a little bit about the sort of turmoil that has been facing recently?
For Thailand people, it is a game changer. And for many politicians there also, it is going to be a very big game changer as it is going to change the government there, especially the Prime Minister. So in that sense, it is a political milestone for the opposition as well as the forces who were not supporting the Prime Minister until last week.
Yes, indeed. Could you tell us a little bit about more what happened to the previous Prime Minister, Paetongtarn Shinawatra, and why she was dismissed?
She was under hot water because of her connections with the Cambodian leader, and that made many people ASEAN for many weeks. And although the ceasefire was agreed, but it did not send a positive and stable signal to many political circuits as well as the entire Thai people. So this was expected to happen, although it happened a little late, but she was not going to right time. And Thai people, especially those who support the military, I mean the pro-military, they really want to see a new government, a new leadership under a new Prime Minister. So they really wanted to change the face. And this is looking to happen very soon.
Dr. Kumar, what more can you tell us about this man, Unutin, who is looking like it might be him that is chosen to lead Bangkok in the future?
Yeah, it looks like he is leading because he has got the backing of many political groups, people, supporters, as well as the opposition. So when you have these all set of backing, then definitely, you galvanize people easily and you get the political support very easily. So it would not be a big surprise to see him as a new president, a prime minister, and he is going to have a kind of a very strong political support ahead.
Yes, Dr. Sanjay Kumar, thank you very much for joining us here. Pleasure to get your insight here on the programme. We now move over to Europe, where a carriage on Lisbon's Gloria funicular derailed and crashed yesterday, killing 16 people and injuring 38. Authorities suspect a cable fault. Portuguese Judicial Police Chief says victims include 5 Portuguese, 2 South Koreans, 1 Swiss, 1 US citizen and possibly 2 Canadians, also 1 Ukrainian and 1 German. 3 remain unidentified. Carries, Lisbon's public transport company, says funicular maintenance is outsourced and suspends other funiculars and Santa Justa elevators for inspections. The wrecked carriage hits a building near the bottom of the 265-metre slope. Portuguese President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa and Prime Minister Luís Montenegro have visited the site and have attended a mass in support for the victims. The Portuguese capital's mayor, Carlos Moedas, declared 3 days of mourning in response to the tragedy. Scenes coming out of the Portuguese capital right now. We have some international reactions who have responded to this iconic piece of Portugal's tragedy. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez and European leaders have offered condolences. Locals have also said the funicular has been vital for daily transport, especially for people with reduced mobility. Let's take a listen in to what some of the Portugal residents and also the Portuguese president had to say.
Estamos num dia de luto nacional. É um luto de Lisboa, mas é um luto de Portugal. É uma hora de luto. E na hora de luto, nós estamos perante uma hora em que, antes do mais, há que chorar os mortos, respeitar os mortos, os crentes orar pelos mortos, os não crentes pensar nos mortos, acompanhá-los, acompanhar os seus familiares, os seus amigos, os seus parentes, os seus compatriotas, no caso de serem estrangeiros também. E o apuramento das causas o mais rápido seja possível. Porque quando se fala de causas, estamos a falar, por um lado, do esclarecimento do quadro jurídico que envolve um processo e, por outro lado, causas técnicas, factos.
Que estão plenamente identificados através de métodos científicos, 5 cidadãos portugueses, 2 cidadãos sul-coreanos, que tivemos a prestimosa colaboração desde a primeira hora da embaixada deste país, um elemento suíço, identificado, uma vítima suíça identificada através de Interpol. Telefonemas que recebemos de pessoas à procura dos seus entes queridos, conseguimos, com quase elevado grau de probabilidade, ter um cidadão alemão identificado, 2 canadianos, 1 ucraniano e 1 cidadão americano. Por isso faltam 3 que estamos a diligenciar para que no mais curto espaço de tempo, pode ser que ainda hoje ocorra, que possamos identificar estas 3 pessoas.
Posso garantir que a segurança é uma prioridade absoluta da Carris há 152 anos e que seremos intransigentes no apuramento das causas e responsabilidades deste acidente, pelo que estamos empenhados para, muito em breve, estarmos aqui para vos apresentar as conclusões.
Okay, we stay in the continent, but we do have some breaking news coming in from the Kremlin. The Russian president has stated that Ukraine's potential membership in NATO is completely unacceptable for Russia. He has further stated that the nation will be okay with Ukraine's European Union membership as it is their legal right. Some huge developments, diplomatic developments from ongoing negotiations for a Ukraine and Russia peace deal. We have heard that they have viewed NATO membership for Ukraine as completely unacceptable, but have also said that European Union membership for Ukraine is its legal right. Some huge developments there coming out of the Ukraine conflict. We now move on. Rescue operations have continued after a devastating earthquake in Afghanistan. Hundreds of bodies have been recovered from mountainous areas of southeastern Afghanistan, taking the death toll to 2,205, according to a Taliban government spokesperson. It was earlier estimated that about 1,400 people were killed in the first earthquake of a magnitude 6, but the United Nations had said that the death toll might increase as people were trapped under rubble. This comes as Afghanistan continues to be hit by the aftershocks of the initial quake. Second and third earthquakes of magnitudes of 5.5 and 5.6 respectively have struck Afghanistan over the past 6 days. The Taliban government has said that rescue and search operations, as well as delivery of first aid and emergency supplies, are still ongoing. We are now joined by Desmond Majekodumi, and he is an environmentalist, and he joins us live from Lagos. Desmond, obviously a tragic situation coming out of Afghanistan. We saw a similar earthquake just months ago in Myanmar. Similar challenges arise for the people of both countries, thousands dead. What are the sort of challenges that the people who face limited supplies and oppressive government rule are going to be facing right now in these circumstances?
Yes, again, another tragedy for these poor souls. The circumstances are not looking good at all, really. And part of the negativity that's happening to them is brought about by the fighting and the insurrection. And it's just yet another manifestation of what humanity is capable of doing to itself. However, what makes it worse in places like that have these really, really massive glaciers is that the glaciers are melting at a phenomenal rate. And we're talking of, like 400 square meters, kilometers of glacier space. And that's about roughly, that would be about 20 gigatons of weight. And a gigaton is 1 billion tons. So you're releasing all this pressure from an area that has a series of tectonic plates coming together. So it's prone to earthquakes anyway. But as you release this massive pressure, I mean, billions of tons of pressure is being released, you're exacerbating the conditions for earthquakes. Our heart goes out to the people of Afghanistan, and we really hope there's some way of giving them some support, even, particularly from the international community. If their own leaders don't have the capacity because they're so oppressive, then let's find a way to reach out to these people, because sadly, it's going to get worse. The ice there, the glaciers are melting faster and faster because of global warming, which we have exacerbated. When I say we, I'm talking about the international community.
Yes, and Desmond, with a mountainous terrain and landslides blocking access, what are the biggest challenges to getting aid into the places quickly where people need it the most?
Exactly. Mountainous terrain is so difficult to get through to the people. And then on top of that, you're having quite a lot of flood water coming down as well, again, because of the ice melts. So, high-tech type of helicopters, it's been done before, but there needs to be cooperation. And, possibly there's some issues with bringing that sort of machinery, because we're talking of mainly military machinery. Those sort of helicopters is usually, owned by the military. And then again, there'd be conflicts, they're bringing their machinery here. But, all this, it's a wake-up call to humanity to change our ways, change our attitudes, because that's probably the main constraint from bringing international help with high technology to help these poor people.
Desmond, pleasure to speak to you. Thank you very much for joining us and taking the time. We now move on once again, and Giorgio Armani The famed Italian fashion designer has died at the age of 91. While announcing the news of his demise, the company wrote the designer's independence of thought and action were his hallmark. A funeral chamber will be open to the public between September the 6th and 7th at Milan's Armani Theatro. Following this, a private funeral will be held for the friends and family. Although the company did not provide further details on Armani's death, the designer was absent from the 3 Armani fashion shows over the summer due to his illness that he was suffering from. Several of Armani's celebrity friends and contemporary fashion designers poured praises and offered obituaries on social media platforms, while the known fashion designer Donatella Versace wrote, "Armani made history and will be remembered forever." Actor Julia Roberts called Armani a true friend and a legend. Armani founded the luxury fashion house that bore his name in 1975 in Milan of Italy, joined by his partner Sergio Ghialotti. Later this month, the 50th anniversary celebrations for his company are expected to take place during Fashion Week in Milan. In the following years, his designs not only graced runways, but also Hollywood celebrities who wore his clothes on red carpets and in movies. Meanwhile, there are many in London who are mourning the death of the fashion designer. Let's take a listen in.
I feel like Armani is one of those names that everyone's heard of. You know, sometimes smaller brands in countries people haven't heard of, but you've got Emporio Armani, the other shop around here somewhere, but all the Armani brands, it's a staple brand across the world that's built, such a lasting legacy. So, good for him, good for his family. What an amazing legacy to build, but it is obviously sad news that such a fashion instrumenter, if that's the right word, as
I'm very sad because he had a great talent and I loved his clothes and things. No, I'm afraid very occasionally when they were reduced normally.
It makes me feel really sad and heartbroken for the fashion industry because Giorgio Armani has been such a powerhouse for over 5 decades and he has stayed true to his vision throughout these years. He didn't sell out, he didn't sell his company to other private equity company or bigger conglomerate. He stayed at the helm until the last day and kept true to his creative vision, and I think this is very rare these days.
Obviously, it's one of the biggest fashion houses in the world that we've known for centuries. And it's obviously really, really sad to hear the passing of Giorgio Armani. Not only himself, but also sad to see that the fashion house will now have to be taken over by someone else. How will that impact the fashion house, which we've seen over years? Will the classic designs change? Will it change the outlook for the company? But obviously, really sad.
Well, that is all that we have time for, but we will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world. Thank you.